Have you ever wondered what the world was like before the Great Flood? It is no coincidence that the Bible speaks of a world before the flood. Ancient Sumerian clay tablets speak of a time before the flood. So do Akkadian texts, so do myths preserved in India, Greece, and China. Different cultures, different continents, different languages. Yet, they all divide history the same way: the world before the flood and the world after it. Tonight we explore the unsettling global memory of the Great Flood. When this video ends, I want to hear your thoughts. Was the flood only a story or a memory of a world that didn't survive? Welcome back to Lantern Chronicles. Long before borders, long before alphabets, long before anyone spoke of beginnings at all, a scribe sits in a temple school in Mesopotamia. He presses a reed into wet clay. He is not composing poetry. He is not inventing myths. He is recording the past the only way his world knows how to record it. And he divides time into before the flood. In that age, kingship is said to descend from heaven. Cities already exist, rulers already reign, dynasties rise and fall. Then comes the detail that strikes like a blow. The reigns of these early kings last not decades, not centuries, but spans measured in tens of thousands of years. One king rules for 28,800 years, another for 36,000 years, another for 43,200 years. These are not metaphors, they are written as specific reign lengths. Then the line appears. After the flood, the world resets. Kingship descends again, cities rise again. But something fundamental has changed. Lifespans collapse, reigns shrink rapidly from tens of thousands of years to a few centuries, then to decades. Time itself seems broken and time scale reset, compressed into spans that finally resemble human life as we know it today. This memory survived through written record on clay, the Sumerian king list. A civilization did not simply remember the flood, it baked that memory into the ground itself. And then it was buried beneath collapsed cities, shattered into fragments, until millennia later, when archaeologists dug into the soil of Mesopotamia and lifted those clay tablets back into the light. And through them, we recovered something extraordinary: civilization's own record of how its world ended. At the end of an age already unraveling, a man named Ziusudra lived among functioning cities. Temples remain active, rituals continue, life moves forward. That the decision has already been made by the gods. One man is chosen, Ziusudra. The warning comes to him as instruction: build the vessel, seal it, prepare. When the waters rise, they erase without distinction. Entire cities dissolve, as if the land itself is being wiped clean. What generations built disappears in days. Inside the vessel, Ziusudra endures, cut off from the old world, suspended between eras. While civilization is stripped away layer by layer. When the waters withdraw, nothing remains to return to. No kings, no cities, no inherited order. Ziusudra steps into a world without memory, carrying something rare, direct knowledge of a civilization that no longer exists. He remains not as myth alone, but as testimony to a world erased. This story endures not because it is comforting, but because scribes preserve it. But the tablets leave one thing unrecorded: why the Great Flood had to happen at all. Around 2300 BCE, Sumer collapses, centuries pass. Akkadian rises as the new language of administration and empire. Akkadian scribes do not discard the old Sumerian tablets. They copy them as training. They translate them line by line into Akkadian. The flood remains, the structure remains, but the explanation sharpens. In Atrahasis, the reason is finally spoken. Humanity multiplies beyond control. The noise reaches the gods. The world can no longer be contained. The flood is not accidental. It is a deliberate decision. By around 1800 BCE, Babylon rises. It inherits Akkadian world and memory. The flood is no longer just recorded, it is expanded. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the survivor is named Utnapishtim. The warning remains, the vessel remains, the flood still erases the world. But Babylon adds what came after. Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, 2/3 divine, 1/3 human, seeks immortality. Utnapishtim, the only immortal left on earth, tells him the truth. Immortality was granted once by the gods after the flood, and it will never be granted again. Gods sealed death back into the world. No past remains. Babylon does not change the flood, it gives it consequence. By 900 BCE, Babylon's power fades. Assyria rises. By force, Assyrian kings collect knowledge the way they collect territory. What Babylon expanded, Assyria preserves. Ancient tablets are gathered into royal libraries, copied, catalogued, and stored as authority. The flood story is no longer debated. It is archived, clay copied from clay, memory secured by empire, preserved as authoritative, ancient, untouchable. Different empires, different agendas, the same flood logic, unchanged. A world before the flood, a catastrophic reset. One warned survivor, a restored age. What survives from Sumer is the structure of the flood, not its full explanation. The reasons and the consequences only appear in later Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian texts. However, it does not mean the Akkadians or Babylonians invented the explanation. It only reflects what archaeology has recovered so far. By now, you might think the Great Flood story survives because civilizations copied clay to clay. And in Mesopotamia, that is exactly what happened. But this explanation breaks down the moment we look beyond the river valleys. The same dividing line before the flood, after the flood, appears in cultures that never touched a clay tablet. Around 2200 BCE, long before China had a unified empire, the flood does not arrive as a single storm. It arrives and refuses to leave for generations. A man named Guan is ordered to stop it, appointed by Emperor Yao. The ruler tasked with holding a collapsing world together. Guan builds walls, piles earth against water, tries to force nature into submission. The flood breaks every barrier. When Emperor Shun ascends to the throne, the burden passes on. He appoints Yu with the task. Da Yu does not command the water, he follows it. He walks the length of the land, digging channels with his hands, carving paths through mountains, guiding rivers circle back towards the sea. He passes his own home and does not enter. Years go by, his body bends, his life dissolves into labor. The flood is not defeated by humans, it is guided through alignment with nature. Years of engineering, sacrifice, and the slow return of order. Historians recite the story, scholars preserve it, and families pass it down as warning. 10 centuries later, in Zhou and Han times, as official record, a memory carried across generations and anchored in the land itself. In central Mexico, history is not linear. It's layered. World ages rise and collapse, each ending in catastrophe. Each age, each sun rises, flourishes, and then fails. One world is torn apart by jaguars, another by fire, another by wind. The world had already ended 3 times by the moment Hui Atoll comes, the fourth sun, the age that ends in water. The The sky breaks open, floods swallow the land, mountains vanish. Humanity is erased so completely that in some tellings, people are transformed into fish. Life reduced to something that can survive only by surrendering to the water itself. There is no ark, no chosen king. Survival is minimal, almost accidental. A remnant clings to existence at the edge of annihilation until the gods intervene again. From sacrifice and rebalancing, a new sun rises, the fifth sun, our current world. Humanity returns diminished, shorter, lived more fragile, forgetful of what came before. Priests recited it as time turned, then wrote it onto bark paper and the deer's skin, into codices like the Borbonicus and the Mimapopoca, where flood and rivers are recorded as history, not legend. In India, a man named Manu finds a small fish, helpless, pleading for protection. He shelters it, and the fish grows, small, becomes enormous, weak, becomes guardian. The fish one day warns him, a flood is coming. Build, prepare, tie your fate to what you believe is bigger than you. When the water rises, Manu survives, becoming the seed of a restored humanity. The story survives through voice and ritual, past teacher to student to generation, by people trained to remember precisely. In Greek memory, the flood is punishment and renewal. Deucalion and Pyrrha survived the deluge and stepped into a world emptied out. No crowds, no cities, no noise, just wind and wet stone. Then comes the most brutal question. How do you restart humanity? They cast stones behind them. Not as magic, but as metaphor, lifeless remnants of a drowned world. From stone comes bone, from rubble comes people. Greece remembers the truth this way. After annihilation, you don't inherit civilization, you rebuild it from what the flood could not erase. Greek poets carry it first in voice, then in verse, shaped it into works like Ovid's Metamorphoses, copied for centuries by empires that needed a story explaining why humanity was allowed to begin again. In Maya tradition, preserved in the Popol Vuh, the flood is part of something even larger. Creation attempts that fail. Beings are created who cannot hold the order of the world. They forget the gods. They misuse creation. The correction is violent. The wrong version is erased. A new world begins. It's not just a flood, it's the cosmos rewriting itself, like a divine editor tearing out a page. Among the Maya, the story passes mouth to mouth, through collapse and a conquest, until it is finally written down in the Popol Vuh, when remembering becomes a matter of survival itself. Now moving to the Cold Norse. In Norse myths, a primeval being is slain, and a flood follows, not rainwater, but a torrent torn from cosmic violence. Most giants drowned. Only Bergelmir and his wife escape, surviving in a vessel, carrying a remnant into the next age. It's the same structure again. Near total wipeout, tiny survival. Rebooted world. For centuries, the story lived only in skaldic poetry until it was finally written down in medieval manuscripts at the edge of Europe. The moment a living voice was trapped on the page we know today. Across the Pacific, flood memory becomes intimate. In Polynesian tradition, catastrophe arrives not as an abstract flood, but as a wave with a name, Ratapu. In some tellings, he is a wronged son, in others, a force unleashed. The sea rises suddenly, violently, swallowing canoes, villages, bloodlines. People run uphill, some make it, many do not. And the survivors do something precise. They bind the disaster to genealogy. Names are remembered, lineages are marked. who lived, who vanished, who escaped by a ridge or a reef. On islands, memory does not travel through monuments or books. It travels through family. To recite ancestry is to recite the flood itself, a warning carried in blood rather than stone. We've followed the floods written down in clay by scribes. We've crossed the world of myths born from independent flood memories that never passed through Sumerian hands, where flood survives through its own people's voice, ritual, and bloodline. Now we turn to the most well-known flood story of all. Unlike myths, which bend with culture and performance, biblical flood is fixed, enforced, and transmitted as moral law, remembered not so a culture can survive, but how the world is judged. Hebrew Genesis paints a world with extraordinary lifespans, deep family memory, and early civilization already taking shape. Cities, lineages, crafts, and social complexity. But the story tightens like a noose. Violence spreads, corruption becomes normal, the world loses containment. Then the flood arrives not as weather, but as a boundary marker. The line between an age that ran too long and a world that had to restart. At first glance, the biblical flood reads familiar. Its structure echoes the Mesopotamian flood traditions preserved by lineage scribes. But the similarities end quickly, because the logic underneath is fundamentally different. Firstly, the purpose. For Sumerians, the flood is administrative. Humanity becomes too numerous, too loud, too disruptive. The gods decide to reset the system. In the Bible, the flood is moral. Violence, corruption, and ethical collapse reach a point where the world can no longer be sustained. Secondly, it's gods versus God. For the Sumerians, multiple gods disagree, argue, regret. One god warned the survivor against the will of the others. In the Bible, one god decides, warns, judges, and preserves, without internal conflict. Thirdly, their survivors Sumerian Zeusdra, Atrehasis, Utnapishtim were chosen because he listens and is favored. Survival is a loophole. In the Bible, Noah is chosen for righteousness. Survival is intentional. For after the flood, for the Sumerians, their survivor may gain immortality, but humanity does not change. The gods move on. In the biblical world, a covenant is established, human limits are set, the moral framework is reset. 5. Transmission. For the Sumerians, it was written early, copied through scribal schools, preserved as a historical administrative record. But the Bible, it's spoken first, then fixed as sacred law, copied with extreme precision, read publicly, and transmitted within a binding community framework. Have you ever wondered whether there was a world before the Great Flood? Because across clay tablets and sacred texts, across myths separated by oceans and millennia, humanity keeps drawing the same line in time, before the flood and after it. What's mysterious isn't that the flood stories exist, it's how calmly they agree. Across cultures that never met, the same idea returns again and again. A world that grew too far too fast, and a reset no one could stop. The memory refuses to disappear. So was the flood only a story, or the last thing people remembered before their world was gone? If the world has already ended once before, what didn't survive with it? This is Hidden Lantern Chronicles. If this made you think, subscribe and leave your comment below. See you next time.